This meeting on April the 20th will come to order. Good afternoon and welcome everyone. My name is Mary Jiang and I'm the president of the Oakland Rotary Club number 3. Made up of nearly 270 people, the Rotary Club of Oakland is the 3rd oldest club in the Rotary world and one of the Rotary's most diverse clubs. Our commitment is to service above self, is carried out through service projects locally and internationally. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for a 5,433rd meeting in the California Ballroom and online. For over 114 years, we have welcomed Rotarians and guests to our club meeting. For those attending online, if you are visiting Rotarian or a guest of a Rotarian, please enter your name in the chat box located in the center at the bottom of the screen so that we can recognize you later. If you have comments or wish to ask a question of the speaker, please use the chat box. We recommend you view today's meeting using speaker's view located in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Now for our thought for the day, I'd like to welcome Michael Malone. Is he here? Is it not Michael Malone today? No. That was last week. Oh dear. We don't have, I didn't update to include this week one. Well, then I guess I have to come up with a thought for the day then. And I was saying that in the area of education, which is my area of focus, and today we have a new member from the education world, they said, if you want to, if you feed somebody, that's all they know. But if you teach them how to fish, they will be able to support themselves and learn and take care of their own family. So teaching is a way of helping someone lift upward. So that's my thought for the day. All right. So please join me as we recite the vision statement. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Okay. Past District Governor and past President Ed Jelen, do we have any visiting Rotarian guests online?
President Mary, before I confess abject failure today, can I see if we maybe have a visiting Rotarian? I guess I do have to confess abject failure. No visiting Rotarians. Thank you.
All right. We'll forgive you for today. All right. Do we have visiting guests? So with the Rotarian, all stand up, introduce yourself, your occupation, and then introduce your guests. No? Any visiting Rotarian? Any visiting guests? Okay.
Mary G. President Mary, Rotarians and guests, I'd like to introduce this table here in honor of Mark Miller, who is being introduced today. Cinder Niemela, you haven't met Cinder, she's a member of the club. Pat Young, Pat was a former member. Liz Sussman, she was also a former member. Marissa Betts, my darling granddaughter. Jack. And Nancy and Alan, and they're neighbors of Mark's. And this is Brian Miller. He is the proud son of Mark Miller.
I think we have a Fred at the stage. Karen.
Madam President, our guest is Arlene Lontock, who is at Laney College and works with Rudy Bessicoff.
Yeah. Okay. Any other guests today? All right. So today I have the privilege of inducting our 18th and 19th new member of the Oakland Rotary Club. Well, Roseanne Torres Carves and her sponsor Keith Urati, please join me at the lectern. Keith, will you introduce Roseanne with 2 interesting facts about her?
President Mary, fellow Rotarians and guests, it's my pleasure to introduce our newest Oakland Rotarian, Roseanne Torres Carves. Roseanne is the owner of the Torres Law Group, a Latino bilingual personal injury law firm here in Oakland. She served as the District 5 Oakland Unified School District trustee for 9 years. Rosie continues to be a community activist, and she enjoys travel and gardening. Fellow Rotarians and guests, please join me in welcoming our newest Oakland Rotarian and my neighbor and friend, Roseanne Torres Carves.
All right, now I'd like to have Karen Friedman, and Dr. Rudy Besikov, and his sponsor Karen Friedman to introduce our 19th newest member. So Karen, could you also say something, 2 interesting facts about Dr. Rudy Besikov?
Well, I'm here on behalf of myself and John Clausen, and we're co-sponsoring Dr. Besikov. It's my great pleasure to introduce our newest Rotary member, Dr. Rudy Besikov. Rudy currently serves as the president of Laney College, one of the 4 Peralta community colleges. He's had an esteemed career in education as a faculty member and then educational administrator. He taught at colleges in Colorado, California, and abroad in Japan and France from 1989 to 2011 before becoming an administrator. He's been at Laney since 2018 when he was first hired as Vice President of Instruction and has been president since 2020. So, 2 interesting facts. Rudy speaks 3 foreign languages in addition to English, French, Japanese, and Spanish. And as you know, he lived in France and lived in Japan. And he used to be an avid runner and ran a marathon at the base of Mount Fuji, and now is a long distance bike rider. So he can join our bike riders here at the Oakland Rotary. Join me in welcoming Rudy Besikov.
But I only speak Scotiabank.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so Roseanne and Rudy, welcome to the Oakland Rotary Club. You're joining 270 Rotarians in our club and over 1.4 million Rotarians throughout the world. Roseanne and Rudy, here is your red badge, which signifies your status as a new member. You will also receive the 4-way test, which guide Rotarians in their daily lives as follows, similar to the 10 Commandments, but the Rotary version of the 4 commandments. So the one is it the truth, whatever you're doing? Number 2, is it fair to all concerned? Number 3, will it build goodwill and better friendship? And number 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? You will receive in this goodie bag. Goodie bag. Heavy goodie bag. All right. So in this goodie bag, you will receive Rotary Made Easy Handbook, which provide useful information about our club, and a roster with your 270th and 71st newest best friends. Here's your Rotary pin, which is behind the badge. Please wear it proudly, because with this pin, you can attend meetings of any Rotary clubs in the world. Finally, in the goodie bag, you'll also receive our centennial book written by a Rotarian, Linda Hamilton, cover 100 years of Rotary history. Your commitment as a new member is threefold. One, to attend meetings, either in person or online, participate in service activities, practice service above self, and financial contribution to the Rotary Foundation and the Oakland Rotary Endowment. It is my pleasure and privilege to induct you as the newest member of the Oakland Rotary Club. Let's give Roseanne Root another warm welcome. All right. I think we have one. Do you want to introduce one other visiting guest? Does somebody have a portable through here?
My guest today, Amber Childress, is the Chief of Staff for City Council member Yanani Ramachandran. So Amber.
Carla Betts, I understand you would do a reintroduction of Mark Miller. Would you come to the stage?
Smile.
I'm smiling.
Okay. Mark was born in Oakland and grew up in Oakland. And as he was a young man, he started in the Cub Scouts and continued on in the Boy Scouts. And this is a picture of him when he earned his Eagle Scout at the age of 16. Mark then graduated from Skyline High School, and it's notable because he graduated in the year between past President David Stein and past President John Protopappas. His summer jobs went from cleaning roofs in Montclair to pumping gas at 35th and MacArthur to working as a cook's assistant in the Lake Yellowstone Hotel in Yellowstone National Park. Next slide. Following the footsteps of his grandfather and others, Mark went into the painting business and as a contractor, and he is now the owner of that and has been running his business for 40 years. In 1983, Mark's interest in flying led him to getting his pilot's license. Commercial, flight instructor, single engine, multi-engine, seaplane, glider ratings, and competitive aerobatics pilot. Also in 1983, Mark joined the Oakland Rotary, where his father, Jack, was a member. At 26, Mark was one of the youngest. He has been on committees ranging from Camp Enterprise, house building, to the board of directors, to entertainment, and many more, including the IFFR. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of the IFFR. Oh, I'm impressed. The International Fellowship of Flying Rotarians. In the meantime, next slide. In the meantime, Mark married and has two wonderful children. Brian is now 29 and has his own construction company. And Haley is living in New York as a graphic artist. In the first few years, Mark has been, in the last few years, excuse me, Mark has been, became involved in the historic Niles Canyon Railroad. And after completing training, let's see, what slide is this? Perfect. And after completing training, he went from brakeman to conductor, and he's now a full-fledged senior diesel engineer. You must go on the train. He drives the whole train. So what have I not told you about Mark? many things. He's run the Beta Breakers for 40 years. He's driven a stock car at 160 miles an hour. He's been a scoutmaster for troops in Oakland and San Leandro. He is a firearms instructor and has earned his distinguished badge and distinguished marksmanship. He got such an early start in Rotary that by 40, he made senior active. Almost impossible. And that the most important thing that Mark has to say about Oakland Rotary is that it has given him many lifelong friends. If you have not had the pleasure of meeting Mark Miller, you need to do so.
All right, Dudley, ring a bell for Mark. I see Alex Polson rings the bell for Mark. Scott McAvoy. Pat Young, John Holgren, Seth Butler, Lorna Patricia Marcus. Okay, Cinder, okay. Shannon Hackley, Michael Brook, Robert Kidd. Did I miss anyone? Dana Sack, Carla Betts, Mary Jeong, Linda Chu. Okay, catch everybody. Just for you.
Mary, David Stein online. I'd like to ring the bell for Mark.
That's David Stein?
Yes.
Yeah. David Stein online. Okay, it's just for those who wonder, a bell ringer is a $100 tax deductible donation to the Oakland Rotary Endowment. So thank you for your generosity, and you get to deduct that next year. All right. Seth Butler, would you like to tell us what this Gala Best Alive is all about?
President Mary and fellow Rotarians, I come before you today to remind and encourage everyone to support and attend our 2023 Gala event, which is 2 weeks away from tonight, Thursday, May 4th, 6 to 10 at Sequoia Country Club. Last year, the theme of the gala, and we're showing some pictures up there, the gala was in the mood for gratitude. We wanted to carry this expression of gratitude into the theme of this year's gala with the intention of connecting, creating more memories and better friendships with each other. Hence the theme, Gratitude Gala. I think we got that up on the wall too. What is the Gratitude Gala? Well, it's an evening of amazing food, great music performed by our own Jason Weiselman and Linda Hamilton, great people to connect with your Rotary friends and family, and a great live auction. So be there and join the excitement. And here are a few ways you can support. One, we still have a few tickets left. So if you want to buy your ticket, buy your ticket. Purchase this ticket to the event now and bring your friends and fun and dance and bid on the live auction items. You can do it online or fill out the form on your table. I think your form got a form on the table as well. But you must purchase the tickets by next Friday so we can get everybody in. Limited amount of tickets. We have a wine raffle. Volunteers, Carrie is right back in the back, except in selling some of those wine raffle tickets where you can win $1,200 worth of wine for a $50 chance. That's a hell of a deal. So you ought to take that up. And people online, you can drop your name in the chat for that. And finally, if you get a choice on your tables is all the live auction items. You can bid for Best of Live, $100 for those tickets for Best of Live, and you can pick whichever one you want if your Best of Live ticket is picked. So I think the chances are pretty good because we don't have that many of them sold yet. So buy your Best of Live ticket at $100 and you can get out of there with a great prize. Remember, this is an event that each year we celebrate the culmination of our ORE annual campaign, which was quite successful in its own right, raising funds to support our impact in the community, to celebrate each other, and to put a final stamp on our Rotary fundraising year. All of this could not be possible without our sponsors. Do we have a slide up there to show our sponsors? And I want to thank all the sponsors for this year's gala. But you don't need to be a sponsor to make an impact. You can purchase tickets, once again, join us and buy a raffle ticket or buy the Best of Lives ticket. And this will give you opportunity to get some of those live auction items. Finally, as a volunteer organization, we value your time and we need, she's got the board right up behind us, Gratitude Gala with all the sponsors' names on there. And so we may need a little bit of help that night. So if you want to volunteer to help us out with registration and all that sort of thing, a few other little items, call Carrie, our fearless leader, who has led us in this gala event, and she would be glad to assign you a task that you can help in the gala this evening. Remember, the gala, Gratitude Gala, May 4th through 6th through 10 at Sequoia Country Club. Be there and support your Rotary Club and community. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth, about the Best of Life. And I'm gonna have to personally vouch that last year for 3 raffle tickets that I bought for Best of Life, and I won the prize of free round trip tickets and 1 week stay in Hawaii. So the chances are good, the odds are good. Please buy your tickets because you get to choose one of the items before they go in the live auction. That's how good it is. All right, thank you. Yeah, and Maria is taking your credit card. All right, John Holgram, could you tell us about an upcoming activity that's fun for Rotarians to participate in?
Thank you, President Mary. So speaking of the benefits of the gala and the funds that are raised, one of the most important things that our club does for the community is supporting transitional kindergarten classes. For a number of years, we've had a number of projects for that purpose. We give gift cards to the teachers every year to supplement their learning materials in their classrooms. This year, we've done 2 book deliveries of age-appropriate and content-appropriate books to students. So we have 1 more coming up in May. And the jewel in the crown are the annual field trips to Fairyland and the Oakland Zoo. And they're happening in the next few weeks. The first one is this coming Thursday, a week from today, is the Fairyland trip. On Monday, May 15th is the zoo trip. And what we're asking you to do is to be, as many of you as possible, to be at those events at about 9:30 in the morning to welcome the buses as they arrive at the venues from the various schools to show Rotary support for the students. Once the students have arrived and have gone into the parks, you're welcome to come in and enjoy the parks yourself. For many of you, it may have been a while since you've been to Fairyland. Bring your key if you do come, it's very important. It may have been a while since you've been to the zoo. The zoo is fantastic, but I think many of you have been there in recent times, but it's a great opportunity to visit those venues. But the most important thing is supporting the kids, show Rotary support, wear your Rotary swag so everybody knows who you are. And that would be a week from today at 9:30 roughly at Fairyland, and Monday, the 15th of May at the zoo. So I hope all of you can be there and look forward to supporting our community once again. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And I believe the sinkhole in front of the zoo has been repaired. All right, Shannon Hackley, how is Rotary Club planning to celebrate Mother's Day next month?
Hello, everybody. Since we missed Valentine's Day with chocolate, chocolate's good for your smarts, your good looks, your interaction with people, right? Chocolate. Make some chocolate dessert, bring it to Rotary on May 11th, and we will have a chocolate fantastic festival. So please come, and we'll have some prizes too. And if you haven't planned that, I'll make sure that we have some prizes. And so anyway, good chocolate, May 11th. Looking forward to see everybody here with chocolate all over.
I'm hoping Julia Fox heard this from May 11th, because last time she didn't hear about we rescheduling it, and she bought in 2 chocolate Valentine's shaped cake. So Julia, we want to hope you remember for next time. All right, Celeste Gordon, could you tell us what you planned for a DEI activity for us today?
Hello to everybody, all Rotarians and visiting guests. Today, your DEI committee offers the fellowship moment. This is designed to deepen our connections and understanding of each other as Rotarians and as fellow humans. It's an effort to get beyond the handshake and invite us to learn more about one another. Please pair up with somebody at your table you don't know very well. Just take a look around at your table, pair up with somebody. You're going to take turns telling and asking each other the following. Do you have a favorite hobby? That's good, that's good. No, it's good, you're all talking. So do you have a favorite hobby? If so, what is it? How did you get into it? And if you don't, you can just go on about something you'd like to do if you don't have a hobby. So you have 5 minutes to do that.
Might be time for a new Rotary lesson. Our steps through for the next height challenge. You don't have hobbies. I still don't like my volunteer. It's a substitute.
Oh, nice. Yes, and then general fiction.
So do you put your name on
International. Yes, I remember. I remember. Jesus. Yeah. That's right.
So, I'm supposed to be here. Yes. I like that. Yeah. And I'll share it with you when it's finished. Yes. Yes, that's right. Yeah, I can take it. Okay.
See, when we tell people, that's it.
Okay, time's up. Time's up. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the DEI Committee Fellowship moment. And we'll have another one in a month. Thank you.
He's running. He's a runner. Oh, yes. Okay, thank you, everybody. You get to find out everybody's favorite hobbies, right? All right. At this time, I'd like to welcome Ruth Strove to introduce our speaker.
President Mary, fellow Rotarians, you might notice that this month we've been talking a lot about Rotary service projects, both locally and internationally. And today I'm happy to introduce to you Jim Carrier who's been joined Rotary in 2004. He's a Rotarian up in Marin County, although I hear he lives here. Jim's going to tell us about ShelterBox, which is a way of creating shelters for people in need, whether there's a disaster or a war-torn area. I think he's got some special information to share with us about the Ukraine, which is a topic that we've been following as a club. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Jim Carrier. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really tempted to use the stool. I've always wanted to be 7 foot tall, but we're going to work. Could we go ahead and get the first slide up, please? Okay. Okay, we're going to talk about ShelterBox today, which is an international leader in tented shelter, and which is a little bit unusual for disaster relief, but something we do really, really well. Let's go ahead and keep advancing the slides. It's a story of how something really, yes, ma'am. Wow, usually. No. Normally people tell me to quiet down, but I'll just keep leaning towards the microphone. It's an idea of how something really, really small can become really, really large. A Rotary Club in Cornwall, the Rotary Club of Helston Lizard, started ShelterBox back in 2002. Our first deployment was 2001 in Gujarat, India. Go ahead. Advance.
The runner is in Portland.
Oh, could you advance the slide, please? I'm sorry, I thought you were doing that. Next slide, please. So why do we exist? You know what, I don't even need the slide. That number used to be 120 million people globally had lost their homes. It's actually 100 million now. But to put those numbers in perspective, that means by the time I'm done talking up here, another 600 people will have lost their home due to a disaster or conflict. 1,800 by the time this meeting is done. I want to talk about something that's in everyone's mind right now, Turkey and Syria. We have been working in Syria for over 11 years, so we were able to quickly aid the earthquake victims there. And we had a ton of aid in Krakow, Poland, that we were moving into Ukraine. And that's just a short flight over the Black Sea. So we're able to quickly get that moved into there. We're moving a little faster than I am, but I'll try to keep up. This is a picture in Turkey of Alu. She and her children were afraid to stay in their home. It was damaged in the earthquake, so they were living outside. We brought in aid there, modified shelter kits that we're using. And next slide, please. You'll see her and her mom and her children next to the mattresses and hygiene kits that ShelterBox provided. A little quick slide of the different types of aid we produce or provide. If you've been to a Rotary event, pet, something like that, you've probably seen the tent set up. Our standard relief kit, the box itself, which is very traditional, but a lot more we use shelter kits. Next slide, please. This is a sample of the tents we use, predominantly the standard relief tent. It's got a footprint of about 20 by 20 by 10. You can sleep 8 people in that pretty easily. And the Flex 3, which is specifically designed for cold weather climates. There's an insulating layer we put in there, and it can actually have a wood burning cook stove in there. We put a bunch of these into Turkey right after the earthquake as well. Blessedly, the temperatures are warming there. It's not quite as cold as it was 3 weeks ago, a month ago, so things are getting a little bit better. And then sadly, we use the UN spec tent quite a bit. And the reason for that, you'll notice there's no markings on that. Nothing that says Rotary, nothing that says ShelterBox. That's because in a lot of the areas we deploy, it would not be safe for people to use the aid if it was obvious it came from the West. Specifically, we're going to talk about the Horn of Africa in a little bit, and you'll see some things there, as well as the Lake Chad Basin. Next slide, please. Shelter kits are something we started doing about 5 years ago. Those boxes used to go out at about $1,000 a piece. I can put a shelter kit out there for about $125. You've got basic gear, you've got ropes, you've got tools, nails, tarps. We source the wood locally. Next slide, please. And you can see it doesn't look like much when you start, but people in developing nations are a lot more resourceful than they are in the United States. Next slide, please. And you'll see they take that shelter kit and they turn it into a home. That's incredibly strong too. You've got a corrugated tin roof with those tarps holding up the wood, and that will last for years and years and years. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And we deliver these by any means necessary. I mean, wouldn't it be great if you could land a plane with all of that gear right next to the disaster zone, but it does not work quite that way. So often, like here, you'll see we're moving things, carrying them up. Slide moved a little faster than I was. Again, I was going to say, and that's no bull, but I'll say technically that was a water buffalo, so work with me. That's in Typhoon Haiyan after that struck in the Philippines a while back. Next slide, please. A little more typical, we'll use local military, we'll use Rotarians on the ground to help us move. You can just keep rolling the slides, please. Put them on boats, things like this. And the next slide is probably amazing. That box weighs 120 pounds, and you saw it right there. I strain a muscle pulling that out of my garage every time I do a display. That lady in Malawi took the box, threw it up on her head, and she walked straight away. So if anybody wonders if women are the stronger species, that was proof right there. And this is my favorite picture in all of ShelterBox. This is in 2003 in Africa. The folks were living in one of our tents when they gave birth. They took the blanket, put it in the box itself, and that became the crib for their child. So in all the years I've been representing ShelterBox, that's my favorite picture. You can go ahead to the next slide, please. What ShelterBox does and how we do it is pretty unique. And I think this is what sets us apart. The two gentlemen in this picture are David Ebe on the left from Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm going to see him in a couple weeks. And Wayne Robinson from Atlanta. This is in Haiti in 2010, 48 hours after the earthquake struck there. And we use our own spot response team members, volunteers, all trained, specifically trained. It's about a one-year program to get through becoming a response team member, to deliver aid, get it through customs, decide who gets it. I'm extremely familiar with the training because I wasn't good enough and I busted out of training, but didn't make it past the 4-day assessment. But I'm very familiar with what we do. And that's very important because remember, you can't land in Ecuador, earthquake, chapter 7, pull out a binder and decide what to do. You're responsible for literally millions of dollars worth of aid that's on the ground. If you don't handle it appropriately, you'll end up on the black market. So these people ensure that our aid gets to who needs it most. It's a very stressful job too, because imagine you go into a village and there's people on this side and people on this side, and they both need aid. And you make the decision, these folks over here need the aid more, and that's who you give the aid to. But the next day you find out a child or an elderly person died from exposure over here. You made the right decision and let someone still die. And yet you make these decisions. You're in the field for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. That's why we train our response team members so much for the deployments we do. Meal teams, monitoring, evaluation, learning and development and deployment, excuse me. This is so important. We go out after every major disaster and we sit down with the folks. Next slide, please. And we talk with them directly to see what worked, what didn't work, what could work better. This is inside a shelter kit, what was built. I don't think that wiring would stand up to Cal OSHA standards, but that again, that worked out well. This is Ned from Walla Walla, Washington, that is talking with these folks about the aid we gave them and how it helped them. Next slide, please. And we've helped over 2 million people. When we became an organization, we went to Rotary and said, about 2 years in, and said, hey, Rotary, do you want this, the ShelterBox? And they said, no, 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 Rotary is not first responders. We're not interested. And about 2 or 3 years after that, Rotary came back to us. We got much larger and said, let's talk. They said, well, will you make the box blue? We said, no, we will not. Will you call it RotaBox? No, we will not. And it was fairly contentious discussion. But finally in 2010, when Kalyan Banerjee was Rotary International president, ShelterBox and Rotary became project partners. And the two organizations are so much stronger together than we would ever be apart. We are Rotary's project partner, meaning all of our gear, with the exception of those UN spec tents, has a Rotary logo on it, the ShelterBox logo. And Rotary represents that we are their project partner for disaster. And when I talk about delivered by whatever means necessary, I told you those boxes weigh 120 pounds. We carried 400 of them up those steps. That is in India. Next slide, please. Nominated twice for the Nobel Peace Prize. We have not won the Nobel Peace Prize, but we've been nominated twice, which is a high honor. And it's mainly because of the peace building we do in conflict zones. When I got involved with ShelterBox, almost all we did was natural disaster relief, tornadoes, earthquakes, floods. And now over 75% is conflict, most of that man-made conflict, but it's causing people to lose their homes. Next slide, please. Where we are in the world right now, at any given time, we do 20 to 24 deployments per year. Most of those are in areas or disasters you didn't know existed. They don't make the paper, but we always seek out those most vulnerable to respond and help. Next slide, please. I want to talk about some of the largest deployments we've ever done. When we first did that deployment in Gujarat, India, we put 250 boxes on the ground, and everything we did after that was 100 boxes here, 200 boxes there. Then the Boxing Day tsunami hit in Banda Aceh, Indonesia. That was the epicenter. We ended up putting 10,000 boxes on the ground. Next slide, please. And that is where we actually came up with the idea of our response teams. We didn't have the response teams at that time. Oh, let's see if we can flip back to that one. It's a pretty impressive picture. There's over 660 boxes on a military transport plane. That gives you an idea how quickly we can move stuff in. Haiti itself, next slide, in 2010. We've been to Haiti 3 times. 2010 was the largest deployment we've ever done after that earthquake. To give you an idea of the devastation we saw there, imagine you're landing at Oakland International and you look over at Hayward's flattened, or you're coming into SFO and Foster City no longer exists. That's what Port-au-Prince looked like when we went in there. And the infrastructure was destroyed. It wasn't just the buildings, the electricity, the plumbing. People, it's not a great lunch topic, but people were buried in the rubble. And it was causing airborne illness. We had to get the people up and out of the city center Next slide, please. So what we actually did is we got them out and we found out with our tents, if you arrange them properly, you can put over 220 tents on a soccer pitch. And that's how we house people. But understand, one of the reasons the response team is there is because if we would have just set up tents, we would have made the situation worse, not better. Those folks had to make sure we set up sanitation, make sure we set up security. That's what made those people safe. We ended up putting 25,000 boxes and another 8,000 tents into Haiti. So to give you an idea, over half the people in Haiti that were housed after that earthquake were housed by ShelterBox and Rotary. Nobody knows that. That's because I'm out talking about ShelterBox. Rotary is horrible at PR. I think you guys know that. So, but that gives you an idea what the reach of Rotary can do. Japan, not so much of a tented response, but we came up with the tent, the shelter in shelter solution we're going to talk about a little bit earlier there. I think what's interesting is, anybody here around for the Loma Prieta earthquake? Yeah, shook for 17 seconds. I'm from Louisiana, scared the crap out of me. But I mean, it shook for 17 seconds. The 1906 earthquake in San Francisco shook for 45 seconds. This was an 8.4 earthquake. It shook for over 3 minutes, if you can imagine that. And yet there was very little damage done to the building is because Japan is made to withstand that. What they weren't made to withstand is a 3-story wall of water that came in and pushed back out. That's what caused all the damage in Japan. Next slide, please. Typhoon Haiyan, next slide. We're gonna have to move pretty quickly here. We definitely responded to Haiyan, but there was a lot more money donated than we could actually use for tented shelters. So we started building transitional shelters. And this year you can see we worked at ACTED, Catholic Relief Services, Handicap International, and Islamic Relief, and built these transitional shelters. And what's neat here is ShelterBox is the point of the sword. We're the first folks in after a disaster. These transitional shelters will take people out to the 2, 3, 4, 5-year mark. And that's where Rotary kind of steps in with the long-term rebuilding project. So that's a perfect example of how we're stronger together. Next slide, please. Hurricane Harvey and Irma. Again, this is where we did shelter in shelter. You have to understand the George R. Brown Center, even though it's much better than after we did with Hurricane and Katrina and the Memorial Center, it's still somewhat horrific, all right? There's lights burning 24/7, 5,000 people designed for almost 11,000 people in there. Next slide, please. So what we did is we took some older tents we can no longer put in the field. We set them up inside. That's not for people to live in. That's a privacy space. When you go into these medical evac centers, there's an evaluation done. There's privacy now, a place for breastfeeding mothers. AA meetings were held in our tents, church meetings, just a place for people to get away. So again, shelter in shelter. We've actually been written up in Psychology Today providing this type of a service. It's one of the ways we do deploy in the United States. Next slide, please. Lake Chad Basin, next slide. Lake Chad is actually a lake shared by 4 countries. And unfortunately, the lake itself has shrunk almost 75%. So there's water insecurity there. And the biggest issue you've got now is Boko Haram's very active. Next slide, please. This is an area where we definitely have to use the UN spec tents because again, because of the terrorist activity going on there and the conflict zones that they're in, people cannot use our tents. Next slide. Syria. It's really easy for people to say Syria is not our problem. Next slide, please. The issue is that this has been going on for over 12 years, and 50% of the refugees in Syria are children. That means they're not going to school for the most part. So what that truly means, if you want to think about it, is we have a lost generation from an educational standpoint. That means this is our problem, my friends. This is going to be going on for decades once the fighting stops, and it's not stopping now. Syria was a very prosperous country. Next slide, please. Just keep going, please. We've got to get through this. Then when you think you've got everything figured out, along comes a pandemic and we're suddenly doing distributions with social distancing. And let me tell you something, it's tough to social distance in a conflict zone, and it's really tough to shelter in place when you don't have a place. But we started putting hygiene kits, soap, water, all this type of things in the different deployment aids we put out, and we've made a difference. You have to understand, Oakland, the population density here is about 7,800 people per square mile. In these refugee centers, it's 30 to 35,000 people per square mile. So that's the conditions we're facing. Next slide. Ukraine, I want to talk about this very, very quickly. Again, you'll see the Shemshul train station. We're putting mattresses, hygiene kits, things like that in. Just keep rolling, please. I love a picture of a person with their ShelterBox aid and a puppy. Keep going. That's Carrie Murray, president of ShelterBox USA. And those tarps you saw, we're also putting on large buildings that to help shelter the buildings that have come through. Moldova Collection Centers, we're working on Moldova exclusively. Decision to deploy criteria, just keep going there. I'll stick around to answer questions later, but we have the Circle of Shelter. The simple fact is I deployed today because someone sponsored ShelterBox or donated to ShelterBox 6 months ago. We have hero clubs that donate every year, and those that do become Rotary ShelterBox heroes. With that, I'm going to leave you with one last thought and take questions. And this was a statement made by James Wolfison when he spoke to the World Bank. He said, if we act now with effort and foresight, if we show courage, if we think globally and allocate our resources accordingly, we can give our children a more peaceful and equitable world, a world where suffering is greatly reduced and everyone can have a sense of hope. Well, what I would say, my friends, is that's not a dream. That's a responsibility. It's why you do what you do as Rotarians. It's why I do what I do at ShelterBox. Thank you. God bless. And I'll take any questions that you have.
If you have questions, please line up at the microphone.
Sorry, I had to rush through that.
You did such a good job.
Yes, sir.
Yes, you did do a great job. Thank you very much. One of the reasons why I joined Rotary was think globally, act locally. And some of the things that you've shown there, I'm curious, has anybody reached out to you about some of our homeless issues? Because some of your answers look like they would be very applicable to our local problem.
Generally speaking, our aid is designed more for developing nations in the United States. I will say there's certainly some areas of the United States that seem like developing nations. I've actually gone on some deployments, not deployments, but assessments to see if we could help here. I'm asked if we did anything down in Watsonville. But generally speaking, when we go anywhere, we have to be invited in. And in the United States, it has to be either the local, the state, or FEMA that asks us to respond. FEMA has never asked us to respond in the United States. We have done so. They have asked us to respond in U.S. territories, such as Fiji and things like that. But just generally speaking, tented shelter is not what's desired in the United States. That's sad. It's a visual thing. No government or no city of Oakland doesn't want to see us setting up tents for the homeless folks. It's just a sad reality. I'm sorry. I wish I could give you a better answer. Okay, well, I promise I live here and I don't really want to go back to work, so I will stick around after the meeting for as long as possible if anyone has any questions. Thank you very
much. Thank you, Jim, for that wonderful presentation. So education is, I mentioned, is my area of focus for this year. The Rotary Club of Oakland is proud to partner with Oakland Promise to offer 8 $10,000 scholarship annually, along with mentorship. We are proud to support many as the first in their family to attend college. In recognition of your presentation today, Oakland Rotary will make a donation in your name to the Oakland Promise to support this kindergarten to college program for every child in our city. Again, thank you. At this point, will Dr. Rudy and Karen please proceed to the back of the ballroom so that Rotarians can greet you as we leave today. Bruce Nye, would you tell us about next week's speaker?
Good afternoon, Oakland Rotarians and guests. I have been a big fan of Oakland's Youth Alive Violence Prevention Organization for more than 14 years. And I was really excited recently to see Oakland Rotary provide Youth Alive with a grant recently. I also really enjoyed working with its former executive director, Ann Marks, more than 10 years ago when we were putting together the violence prevention Measure Z. That the city council put on the ballot and it won. Youth Alive's longtime executive director, Ann Marks, retired recently, and the new executive director is Joseph Griffin. Joe will be speaking to us next Thursday, talking about Youth Alive, its history, the amazing things it does, and its future plans. I am really looking forward to that and looking forward to seeing you and Joe next week.
Thank you, Bruce. All right, I'd like to thank Keith and Karen for introducing our new members, Roseanne and Dr. Rudy Bursico, Carla for reintroducing Mark Miller and all the generous Ring the Bell donation, Seth for telling us about Best of Lies, John Holgram for the TK Fairyland outing and zoo, Shannon Hackley for informing us of a sweet way to celebrate Mother's Day, Celeste for the DI fellowship moments, Ruth for introducing a speaker, and Robert for and Jim for the awesome presentation, Bruce for the teaser, and the production team for managing another successful meeting. Again, Rotarians and guests, as before you leave, please remove all your trashes and personal belongings from the table so that the kind Rotarians who are helping us to clear the room can do it quickly and easily. Like your mama says, please clear the table. So, share, which means thank you, everyone. This meeting is adjourned.